Thank you, Mary Beth. I'll welcome everybody to the Irvine International Academy board meeting that's scheduled today on June 30th, beginning at 3 p.m. We're actually starting at about 3:09 p.m. I will begin with a attendance roll call, and I'll start just to my left instead of in our other order. Molly Chang.
Present.
Okay. Doug Hewson, that's me. I'm here. Below me is Brett Freeman. He is traveling right now and will not be present. To the right, Miller. Sean.
Present.
And going to Felipe Delgado.
Present.
Wonderful. And David Sun.
Present.
Fantastic. And we have quorum, which allows us to move forward. Prior to approving our agenda that's given to everybody, we'll ask for a pledge of allegiance. Our flag is for us at the top to the left. For those in the building, it's on the right there too. I ask for a volunteer to lead the pledge with a ready begin kind of signal when we're ready. Oh, I'll take a little Rick, see it a little bit. I'll back up a little bit. There you
Put
go.
your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I
pledge
allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Molly. Having reviewed the agenda, let me just invite anyone, if you have any suggested changes. I think we're not going to change the order unless somebody has a preference. Any changes to agenda before asking for a motion to approve the order of the agenda? We'll continue then with the way it's outlined here. Can I ask for a motion to approve the order? Agenda?
Motion, we approve the order.
Okay, Felipe got in the motion and Miller got in the second, it appears. And so working left to right, Molly,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, and Felipe,
Yes.
and David,
Yes.
and Miller.
Yes.
Wonderful. We'll go with this agenda. Turning over then to item Roman numeral 2, we will have closed session. We have the opportunity to have a representative from Young Meeting Court, which is our legal counsel. We're going to be talking about potential litigation. Should not be long. I say that every time I think, but this time I really mean it won't be that long. So we'll go offline for a bit, and then if there's any action, we'll report it out. But let's take a break then, and we'll go to closed session. Dr. Bean, reconvening then the June 30th, 2023 Irvine International Academy board meeting. Picking up at the end of Roman numeral 2, closed session items. Nothing to report out at this time. Moving us on then to Roman numeral 3. Oh, we just did that. Public comments are available for anyone present or online for agendized items. Then you'll have the opportunity again when the item comes up at non-agenda items. Any comments for anybody today, Mary Beth? Okay, good. Then we'll move on to information items, Roman numeral 5. We're excited to hear an update now at year end from our executive director, Dr. Bean, followed then by our local performance report as well, which probably could blend all together. Dr. Bean, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, it was a very successful year. We were the families, last day of school, were very happy, very excited. Just so many amazing things that occurred. And because of the team that we have, including you guys up there as well. So let me just give you some quick end of year things. All 100% of teachers completed the performance learning plan, so it's a PLP process, which included 2 formal observations. They're very happy with the process, and I asked each of them individually, what did you think about the PLP process? They were very thrilled about it because it's an ongoing document in which they can include data about their own teaching. So I wanted to share that with you because many of the teachers said that they grew a lot because of that process. So we'll continue that process next year. And because this year coming up, we're focusing heavily on instruction That means that I will be in the classrooms more for informal observations. Okay. We ended the school year with in registering 370 students for next year. These are families that have accepted and actually registered with us. They also include the returning students, and it does not include those families that have told us that they had to move. So we obviously removed that. 370. Now there are 28 still applicants that accepted a spot at our school, but they haven't completed the full registration yet. So potentially this could be 398 is potentially what the enrollment could be in the fall, but at the very least, we think around 360 to 370. We're starting to get data in from SBAC, unofficial data. Right now, looks like we're going to sustain our great math performance. Remember, we were second in Irvine Unified in math. We're going to be at that and maybe even above what we were last year. Amazing. Also, we were really, really thrilled with ELA. ELA, I think we were in the mid 60s. I think this number will go up to the 80s as well. It'll be on par with math. And for us to do that in ELA, or any school to do that in ELA, is very significant because ELA and math are the biggest portions of the SBAC. So if we do very well in those two areas, we're very, very successful, and we'll be applying for California Distinguished School. We found though that we did decrease in our science performance. Now, mind you, we only have about 16 fifth graders that took the science, and probably about a little over 50% were at or above performance level. So it's a small n, right? Small number. And so any student that is not proficient is going to hit the number very hard. Whereas ELA and math is the entire school. Well, grades 3 through 6, right? Science is only 5th grade for those 16 students. So we're going to see a decrease in science, but we'll see significant increase in ELA, and we'll see a sustained performance in math. That's the overall summary of SBAC. We'll give you the official results when they come out. Staffing update, all teachers are returning. Okay, except Poppy, but good news is actually Poppy's coming back as a student teacher. So she was one of our Mandarin teachers, but she's actually getting a B-clad in Mandarin so that she becomes part of our pipeline of Mandarin teachers. So we're starting to build our pipeline, okay? Which, speaking of pipelines, we're gonna have 3 student teachers next year. Poppy, another bilingual Mandarin teacher as a student teacher who will be in the pipeline, and special education. Because as we grow, we would like to place a special education teacher in here so that Mr. Fernandez doesn't have to do all of it. Special education, GATES, or gift and talent, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll have 3 students in as student teachers next year. All staffing positions are filled, so I'm sure that that Ms. White is very happy to hear that. We are, however, waiting for one response from a Mandarin teacher. So we're actually continuing the hiring process should she turn down the offer. So if she does turn down the offer, we'll have some backup plan. But this summer, the rest of the summer, really just trying to nail down that one Mandarin hire. Otherwise, we're fully hired. Now, let me just back up. When I first came on board in the middle of July last year, we had to hire all the Mandarin teachers in a span of 3 weeks, right? And hire some English teachers as well. So we're way ahead of the game. Frankly, I don't know what we'll do with our time this July. No, I'm just kidding. There's plenty to do. But that's the staffing update. So we're very happy about that. And as you met, Kismet White is our new director, and she's just hit the ground running. Comes with lots of experience in the charter world. How many years? Over 2 decades? Yeah, 2 decades in the charter system in LAUSD. So she knows her work very well, especially when it comes to HR. Okay. So that's the staffing update. We did put a pause on the director of curriculum because we you're gonna approve a contract for our Mandarin consultant. So the Mandarin consultant told us, just wait. I will help you develop the scope and sequence with your team. You don't need to hire a director of curriculum yet. I will do this work for you. That's why we're hiring a consultant. Actually, I asked her if she would come on board full-time. She said no. She likes her business of consulting. So, and there are that many that are as successful as she is because she consults with a dual immersion schools across the country, in Mandarin especially. All right, so that's the EB report. Let's just jump into the next section, item, and that is the local indicators. So annually, the board is to hear a report about local indicators. So let me give you a background about what they are. First is that every school is held accountable to its data, and the data is reported on what's called the California School Dashboard. And that holds us accountable to different measures or different metrics. Some of the metrics is the student achievement metrics that I just talked about, ELA, science, and math. Then there are other metrics that we're held to that are internal, and that's called local indicators. All right, just like the local control funding formula is local, so local indicators is also local. So Ed Code does require us to present to the board what we will report to the state in the fall. All right. So what are the local indicators? The local indicators are made of these five areas, which hit one of the 8 state priorities. Basics, which is teachers, instructional material facility, implementation of academic standards, parent-family engagement, local climate survey, and then access to broad course study. So when we report the local indicator results in the fall, we have to tell them whether a standard is met or not, and then some brief narratives about why we think we gave the score we gave. It is a self-reflection assessment, is the local indicators. Each district has to self-reflect in these areas and report out. As I said before, there are 8 priorities. Well, these indicators hit these 5 priorities: 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7. This is on the board folder too, so if you want to study this later on. If you see in the first priority, textbooks availability, adequate facilities, and do we have correctly assigned teachers? Second priority is, we have to give a progress report on, are we implementing standards across our content areas? Third is basically, are we seeking input from parents and stakeholders? And then how is our climate, our local school climate? And then the last one is, we must give a progress on what our students are able to access in terms of curriculum. So let's go over the first priority, basic services. The data that we're going to report is 0, 0, which means number of percentage of misassigned teachers. We have 0 misassigned teachers from last year. We have 0 number of students without access to their own copies of standard or line curriculum. So we're good there. And then we have 0 number of identified instances where facilities do not meet the good repair standard. In fact, the FIT, which is what our OCDE uses, they gave us a score of exemplary for our facility. So those are all good data that we'll be reporting. Let's talk about implementation of standards. Based on California tells us to do a self-reflection scale of these 5 areas. 1 is a school that's just exploring and researching in that area versus a school that's fully implemented and sustained, right? So you want a 3 or higher. So as we did self-reflection, as a staff, we're going to give you what the scores are. So let's look at the first one. In the area of implementing standards, we self-reflected a 4. We've implemented. This year will be about sustainability. Okay, so the average score that we will give ourselves is a 4, therefore standard met for this priority. Priority 3, parent and family engagement. This is actually pretty high because again, we use this scale, but it's high because we have done so much to really build relationships with our staff and get input from people. So we felt that, you know what, there's room to grow, so therefore we're not gonna give ourselves 5s, we give ourselves 4s on this. So we gave ourselves 4s for building relationships between staff and family, partnering with families on student outcome, and then seeking input on decisions. We also gave a 4. So the average score we will report to the state is a 4. School climate. School climate, we just have to give a narrative, and some of the strengths based on our surveys that we gave, the family and student surveys, 85% of our students highly value their relationship with teachers, which indicate the success of our efforts in fostering strong connections in the classrooms. 90% of students reported feeling that our school is a safe place. And then more than 85% of our students stated that their teachers have established a positive community. And then there's some areas of growth or sustainability. We want to continue student-teacher relationship. We want to review safety protocols regularly in drills and collaborate with our families to conduct those drills safely. And then we want to explore opportunities for strong connections across grade levels. So those are our ways that we will get a 5 next year, is by growing in those areas. Then access to a broad course study. It's pretty simple. All students, and this is the narrative that we will have on the website, all students, including those in unduplicated groups, which you learned about today, and individuals with exceptional needs are granted access to essential subjects such as math, ELA, science, and social studies, along with PE. We make sure that all students, regardless of their unique needs, have the opportunity to participate in this coursework. And then further on, we talk about then those students with individualized needs like IEP, students with disabilities, 504s, SSTs. We also present to them support in their academic subject areas. So that's the narrative that we're going to give to the state. Okay. So our next step then is today, you just get a presentation on it. In the fall, we will submit that data into the dashboard. It was not done last year, and so we have to make sure that it's done this year because you cannot have 2 years of not met. Okay, we don't want 2 years of not met. So because it actually might affect grants like the PCSGE grant. So we need to make sure that this is reported, and it will be. All right, any questions about the local indicators? Great. All right, that is it of the executive director report and the local indicator report.
Thank you, Dr. Bean. We're grateful for that update. Wonderful. We're moving on into our consent agenda items, Roman numeral 6. Just as a recap on these matters are on the agenda for consent as a batch because generally they're routine and done ethically. We do have employee contracts, but one change in the employee contracts, the one that we're not approving in the consent would be that of our executive director. That comes separately and is talked about openly in the Wisdom dialogue. And so what is in scope here? We'll approve our last minutes. We'll approve the employee contracts that we just heard outlined, and then the board will approve vendor contracts as well. That looks like the scope of it. Any discussion prior to me seeking a motion on that?
I think you're supposed to motion and then ask for a decision.
Oh, okay. Let me ask for a motion for our consent agenda items. I'll move. Then could I ask for a second? You know who beat you?
Yeah.
David beat you. So we'll pause there for a moment then and invite any discussion prior to doing our roll call vote. Any discussion on consent items?
Just to remind the board that all of these contracts, both vendor and employees, are in the board folder. So I know you had a chance to preview them before. You can also preview them after or look at them after.
For sake of the public as well, the board voted earlier to put the boundaries on the increase in salaries. And so that was already in the record. So Dr. B knew that he was working with and staying within the boundaries. Let's go down the line and I'll start on my left with Molly Chen. And I'm a yes as well as Doug Houston and Felipe Delgado.
Yes.
And David Stern.
Yeah.
And Miller Sean.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, I don't want to move on too quick because, oh no, it's right here on A. Fantastic. It is my next item. Let's move on to Roman numeral A. The board will consider approval of a revised executive director contract. We talked about his salary before. His duties have been outlined in the agreement inside of our folder. Reminding you again that he's fulfilling not only executive director duty, but in here is also the principal duties. So we get a 2-for-1 in some ways on that. He was not comfortable taking the full salary we were prepared to offer, and instead wanted to stay in line with the other employees. And so he has agreed to a $215,000 salary with the $2,000 and change stipend for a person holding a PhD. And so that was very generous of you. I'm grateful for that. Every dollar counts in this one.
Any, well, we'll take a motion on the contract that's been provided at that reduced salary that we had agreed on last time, and we'll just do any discussion if we want. Would anyone like to motion? Okay, David moves. And a second? Molly second. I made my comments a little earlier that I'm just pleased with that this gesture. You know, it's real money that you're entitled to, but you've foregone it for the sake of unity and the teamwork. I appreciate that. Any other comments?
Yeah, I want to make a comment, you know, just, yeah.
Speaking right, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to commend Dr. Bean for, you know, reduce the salary package. I mean, yeah, I think the board member, I really appreciate that gesture. It's a wonderful gesture. I think that it goes a long way in incentivizing the team. And, you know, you see the benefits. Yeah. And you are well entitled to a better compensation. I know that, but, you know, we do appreciate that.
And thank you so much for just setting an example for us to see what a true leader is. We appreciate it.
Any other comments?
I would like to say thank you. And also, I think that, you know, we've been talking about creating a safe and positive environment. I think, you know, start from the leader, but also you're not just a leader, you really want to serve the school, all for the children, parents, and also the staff. This is the greatest example that you set. We appreciate.
My turn?
Yes, please.
Very admirable. All right. And I just want to let you know that if I had that issue, my wife would not allow me. Just FYI, all right? Just so you know.
That's true.
Oh, wonderful. We'll do a roll call vote in beginning with Molly.
Yes.
As yes, Doug Husen is yes as well. Felipe
Yes.
and David.
Yes.
And lastly.
Yes,
Ella.
yes, yes. Before he changes his mind.
Yeah. Item B is the board's consideration and adoption of the new school year 2023-2024 LCAP control and accountability plan as we've heard outlined. Dr. Bean, any commentary on the LCAP? Just for public sake too, we visit this multiple times during the year. It's not an event, it's a process and involves nearly everybody involved in the school.
Yeah, just last month, we had the public hearing for the LCAP, as you had an opportunity to look at the way it was written a month ago. We used all of your input, along with the input of families, to now submit to you what the final LCAP will be. So in your packet, you should have that. I will pull it up real quick so that we can look through it real quick. Oops, that's the wrong one.
It's the final.
Here it is. All right, so after taking your input and then sitting down with Delano for hours and hours, we have gone ahead and finalized our goals. So we have 3 goals along with actions. As you can see, I've written narratives for these questions that they ask you on how we engage parents and or educational partners. And then, okay, so here's goal number 1. Ensure all scholars are meaningfully engaged and achieve in rigorous and standard aligned dual immersion program in both English and Mandarin, and students are engaged in academic intervention if necessary. As you can see, it fits these state priorities 2, 4, 7, and 8. I'm not gonna go over that, but as you saw earlier, we didn't make any changes to the metrics that we presented to you last month, so that remained the same. We did, as you can see, these are the actions, and there are 10, or no, looks like 12 actions for this goal. And as you can see over here, we looked in detail, Delano and I, and we put the funds that would match that action. And then if you see a yes, that means that that particular action is actually impacting our unduplicated students. And you learned about unduplicated students earlier this afternoon. So if it's a yes, that money goes specifically to support those subgroups. And if it's a no, then that money goes to support the general population, school-wide. So that's how you signify it in the LCAP. Okay, so that's goal number 2 or number 1, and then goal number 2 just had to deal with our school climate and student engagement. As you can see, we have a lot of measures for that. And then we have about 12 action items that go along with that. Some of these action items that you see won't cost us any money, but we still have to put them in here. And then a lot of these actions are contributing to supporting our unduplicated students. Okay, and then the last one is goal number 3, create and engage parents, students, staff, and overall community population that is fully invested in and actively connected to the school community and academic program. And those are the measures. And then we had 4 actions in which we put it included in our LCAP. So that's basically the LCAP. As you see, LCAP is specifically tied with the money. And Delano will show you in his item how it's put into, how we present it to the parents. But that's what we're asking is that the board approves the 2023-2024 LCAP.
Great, we'll go ahead and look for a motion then to approve the LCAP for the plan. Then we're going to hear the budget in a moment from Delano. Ask for a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the LCAP as stated by Dr.
Very good. And a second, please.
I'll second.
You know what I think? I think Molly made it.
Okay.
Yeah, don't be shy on the next one. We'll do a roll call vote on that. Then Molly,
Yes.
and Doug is a yes, and Felipe,
Yes.
and David,
Yes.
and Miller.
Yes.
Very good, very good. So, Lana, we're looking forward to your portion of this, even though we've seen it forecast now in that right column, when you're ready. By the way, for those that have joined us at this point in the meeting, they may have missed the fact that we had a previous training provided by Delano Jones at his company, North Compass. Give me the last word again, Delano. Consultants, yes. And it's just great training. So got us a long way ahead for what we're about to hear from them.
So I'll make this brief. I know the board has had quite a long day already. And so this is, I was very intentional this afternoon when I presented the the LCFF overview and those things, because this really ties to that. Or do I need that? Yeah, please.
No, you need to use it because people online.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I forgot the public was there. If you recall in our meeting, I mentioned that there were certain compliance pieces, and because this is a public school, we're obligated to report to our stakeholders. Yourself being part of that, fine folks here in the audience, even though they're staff, and then anyone online who is also a parent, concerned citizen of the community, et cetera. Hopefully this, what I presented in there will tie into this, and it will somewhat start to come together as a complete picture. So as I mentioned that, you know, as I mentioned, your LCFF revenues are the biggest piece of your revenues. One of the components or requirements of the LCAP is that we produce annually this budget overview for parents, right? And it's a very simple document in its explanation, because again, as I mentioned, the moving parts with LCFF and all those things can be quite complicated. So what we try to do is taper that down to what I would consider a elementary explanation of all of those moving parts. Here is your supplemental and concentration amount that you got. You remember me talking about that in there, right? So for 23-24, if you recall, that number in 22-23 was 111,000. Now, as you can see here, that's going up to 206,000 or so there, right? The other components of your LCFF, right? So this is really $55,733, I believe that says here. Roughly 80% of this graph here is your LCFF amount. So any parent walking in off the street can ping Dr. Bean, can actually even, they'll get a hold of Molly and go, hey, Molly, we want to see that budget overview for parents because we're concerned about what's in it and how you're spending the overall school dollars. You go, absolutely, call Dr. Bean. I know exactly what you're talking about, and he'll be able to provide this document. Give you a quick summation down here, right? And so I'll just read for you the text of what this summarizes really quick. Above here, you can see that we have a projected budget amount of $5,040,000, of which about $4,055,000 is your LCFF, right? Of that, we're saying that 280,000 federal, et cetera. And then this 206,000 here is that supplemental and concentration, that targeted amount that Dr. Bean mentioned in the LCAP with those Ys next to it, meaning that that dollar amount can tie back to this dollar amount in terms of that additional support. So this now sort of brings everything to life. You can see that because the LCAP in and of itself is really supposed to be a living document, in a sense that you should be able to go in there, look at goals, and then somewhere around this institution, you can see it happening in real time, right? Let's go to page 2 really quick and into the conversation. Again, here, as I mentioned, you can see, this is our total budgeted general fund expenditures, of which we have accounted for $3 million of it in the LCAP. You'll say, Delano, why don't we have dollar for dollar in there? Well, certain things just don't really belong in there, right? In terms of, it doesn't speak to a goal or an action or anything like that. And so I've listed here just a few of those things that we've excluded, if you will, from there, right? Down here, we can say here, we have some authorizer fees, insurance, obviously, things like that doesn't really belong in there. Some consulting services, although others are, for your copier machine, you don't have to put that in there, right? Things like that, and some operational expenditures as well, right? So we tend to put all the things that are relevant into that document. And then obviously we owe the general public a answer on what's not included, just in case they ask. So that's what you see there. And then on the last page, it speaks to one of the important things we were talking about in the room there. So remember I said we received 111,000 for those targeted students, but here's what, there he is, Dr. Bean. We spent 190,000. So we went above and beyond. And that is the goal of this, right? Each and every year is not just spent to this amount, but to say, hey, look, we recognize that this alone doesn't necessarily, and even I will say, even this alone, right? As I spoke about state funding and how underfunded we are in California, I would even make the argument that, even this amount, which is about 80,000 or so, close to that, in addition to what we were obligated to spend, right? So we overspent in terms of putting more resources into that, into those unduplicated students. That is the long and short of the budget overview for parents. And again, this is a document that any parent walking in off the street, and in fact, I would even recommend that you can post this on your website, right? As part of your transparency. So that way you can always continuously update those who want to know and those who need to know. And I would think all of your stakeholders as well will be engaged to some degree with these types of information. But yes, please post it on your website, and it's there so anyone who wants to see it from the general public will be able to get access to it. And so I am asking for approval. Well, when you do the LCAP approval as well, you can certainly approve this.
Yeah, we approved the LCAP plan,
Yes.
so we'll go ahead and do a separate vote on this LCAP budget document, which will be available to anyone in the public and all stakeholders as well. I'll move that we adopt it as presented. Could I ask for a second?
I second.
And Felipe, second. Going left to right, and Molly.
Yes.
And Doug is a yes. Felipe?
Yes.
And David? Yes. And Miller?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. But continuing on, then, we've done a number of iterations on the next fiscal year budget, and we'll see a brief presentation by Delano, and then we'll discuss and take a vote on that as well. That's item D. Mary Beth, should there be any public comments, just notify me. I'm going to presume at each one they would have come on earlier.
Okay.
Right. Instead of showing you this, which is the version I have to turn into Orange County, and I believe, Dr. Bean, you guys have taken care of that.
The
piece. Yes.
authorizer summary, which
Yes.
is a little bland.
Yeah, well, there's 14 pages of that.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna go over to this one, which is more of a summary of all of that information there, right? So,
We love this summary spreadsheet you guys have developed.
yeah, it's, we try to, we try to provide as much information as possible, but obviously there's just so much detail in between some of those lines that, we try to give you a little summary of what's happening here. So as we mentioned before, and Dr. Bean has mentioned that, for next year, we're looking at 377 students, and obviously I think you said that number will be a little bit higher, but obviously the more students, more revenues, that's a little bit, as I will consider icing on the cake, so to speak. And for some reason I cannot get this PDF to work right. As I mentioned in there, and some of these things you can see here in terms of some of your, your LCFF and your EPA amounts that we discussed earlier. Then you also have some other district and school demographic details as well. I'll jump down into what I call where the rubber meets the road here. Again, we mentioned it's too much to hold. I'll do it here and I'll have to move it. As you can see here, so we're budgeted 377, 95% ADA. And as we talked about earlier that, we want to make sure that we keep this ADA amount as high as possible, that percentage rate, because that's money you're really leaving on the table. The lower this number goes, right, then that's funds that you could have had the students showed up for school, but since they didn't, then you're just basically leaving that money on the table. So we want to encourage all students to show up as much as they can. Obviously, outside of being sick, you certainly don't want to have that be an issue here. So our LCFF revenues, as we talked about, right? 4 million, as I mentioned, Molly, about the property taxes, you can see that amount there being the highest, then your EPA being the smallest, and then your state aid. As I mentioned, these two here can flip-flop depending on the district you're in terms of the amount of tax, into property taxes you're getting. A couple of other highlights here as well. Couple of other highlights here as well. Sure why this is doing that. Special education, federal dollars. Right, and again, some of these, like I said, as we go through the course of the year, I will do that deep dive into some of these to sort of tie things together in terms of what they're for, uses, et cetera, right? Now, bottom line, some of this for you. Hey, Mary Beth, can you help me out here, please? I am just in a world of hurt. Yeah, I just need you to pull it up. So, one second. Never mind, I got it. Certificate of staffing, you can see that there. Classified salaries as well, and I'll show you on the next page, the breakdown of those. Right, and then our benefits as well. And then obviously most of our benefits and things like that are percentages of tied to your salaries. Program costs, right? So again, this is always the area here where, we tend to see a lot of movement, lots of expenditures, because this is the meat and potatoes of this institution, are the 377 students, and making sure that they have all the resources that they need, as well as your staff, right, to provide a well-rounded education to those students. Operational expenses as well. And again, you can see that there on page 5 or 6. Staffing. So we have growth, right? If you recall, year 1, big growth, right? Year 2, we contracted. Now year 3, we're growing again, right? And I want to say this, just for context purposes here, you tend to see this natural type of ebb and flow within a charter school in the first 5 years, right? Because usually some people, they have just the reverse. They start off very small, and then year over year, you see growth. Here we had a big growth, then we contracted. Now we're getting back to that space of growing again, right? With that said, what you're going to see is this kind of thing with your revenues and your expenses, right? So this year, we're going to see things diving down, right? Because we had less revenues to work with, but we still had enough students, and obviously you needed to keep the staff intact, right? So you're going to see some of that in terms of our actuals when we present them when we close the year. All right, but take a look at where we are this year, right? So we bumped up teachers, right? Increase, well, we used the stipends amount a little bit less, right? But you can see here, certificate salaries went up as well. And we'll be adding another staff member here, I believe, later on. You can see our total, really grew by 1, but overall, there's a little bit more there because these are full-time employees, not singular employees in that way. All right. Just below that. Right, so that's 21 FTEs for your certificated. Right down here, you see here, we have another 16.5 for classified staff. And again, that's support, not just the classroom things, as I believe currently now you have an instructional assistant. You call them instructional aides or instructional teachers aides. Yeah, teachers aid, teachers assistants. Which one do you prefer? Teacher aides in every class, right? To support those grade levels. That's reflected here, as you can see that. And then obviously you have some campus support, office management, Mary Beth and company, and those folks there as well. Let me show you just a little bit of this spreadsheet here. If you give me this connection, when I'm connected here, it doesn't allow me to do what I want to do. Let's see if we can get to the bottom line here on this. So as we come down, you can see what it's going to cost us for our people, right? Because these are the most important things we have. Outside of our students, staff, in my opinion, are the next important, right? Because they do the work that, they were hired to do. Overall salaries and benefits for this year is going to cost us roughly about $3.2 million, right? Out of our $5 million budget. So as you can see, doesn't really leave a lot of room. Now we have to be, and this is where Dr. Bean and I have to become very strategic in terms of how do we deploy the remaining resources to be as efficient as possible, right? Without breaking the organization, right? And so there is always that, this robbing Peter to pay Paul, or that, balancing act that we have to make sure that we may not give you everything, but at least someone will get something, right? Most people will get something in terms of needs versus wants, things like that. Bottom line for you guys. And again, keep in mind, this budget is written in pencil, as I like to say, because as soon as the school year starts, obviously we'll make adjustments and changes based upon enrollment, staffing, other needs that may come up during the summertime, right? And we all know that, right about now, school is shut down for a couple of weeks, but as we get into the summer and things start to ramp back up, things usually come up that says, hey, we may have to hire someone else, or the person who accepted the job took another job. We have to fill that position. Maybe that costs a little more money, things like that. And obviously the resources we have. I put together here a cash flow for you. You would need a magnifying glass to read this. It's really small, and if I blow it up, you just sort of lose the page. But it's there for your reference, and I can certainly email you the bigger spreadsheet if you want. But you can kind of see how we've spread out. And this is one of the things that we'll be covering as part of our learning series next time, is sort of looking at revenues and how they flow into the school, right? The timing of them, the percentages of those things, right? And that's reflected here in this, but obviously without some context for me, it's not easily understood, but I can certainly get you guys up to speed with this as we do with our learning series throughout the course of the year. Net income for this year, subtracting our revenues from our expenditures, will be at about $210,000. Right. And again, keep that in mind that we, as part of our overall strategic plan here, is that we're building a program, right? And this is a slow build in a sense, right? For the next 3 to 4 years, what we want to do is to start to then build reserves as well, right? So part of that, we're going to have to invest into this program. So the first couple of years is really the first 3 to 4 years of this. By the time you get to your renewal is really when you start to see most charters turn that corner from program building, in a sense, to now where they're building up their reserves and their balance sheet, their fund balance, if you will, for other items, right? And again, as part of this board strategic plan, we'll sort of look at this. We have the middle school that we just started. In about 3 or 4 more years, I promise you someone's going to say high school, right? And by then we should be ready because we will have built up those reserves and those things that we need. And again, like I said, as part of this will be a slow build, but we will eventually get to that place. I'm going to ask the board to approve the budget as stated. And again, with the caveat that if we know throughout the course of the year, chances are we'll be bringing back another budget for approval once we get a little more information, or things have changed material wise, for another approval. That is the budget in a nutshell.
Okay. We'll see if there's any board comments or questions. Entertain a motion to adopt it. Any questions, comments for Delana? Okay. I'll make one comment. Thank you for the hard work between you and Dr. Bean in coming up cash positive of $200,000. That is not easy. That's a gnat's eyelash on a $5 million budget. And we did. And that's a great goal to shoot for, to be positive, and that'll be very well received by our authorizers. So thank you. Thank you for controlling costs and yet still building programs. I think that's the key. I'll make a motion then that we accept the fiscal year budget for 2023-2024.
Second.
Melly's a second, and we'll just start at your end then, Miller?
Yes.
Yes, David?
Yes.
And Felipe?
Yes.
Doug is a yes, and Molly?
Yes.
Wonderful. We've got that budget ready to go, and I know Dr. Bean will get it into our authorizer either directly or indirectly to Delano. Next is item E. We're considering the education protection account resolution and what we estimate expenditures will be for the next fiscal year. Then we're going to go retro back in that item F and just see where we're at in the current year and get an update on that. We'll approve both of them, but talk to us about what we need to adopt on this one.
Right, so if you recall, even last year, Doug, while you were here, and again, Molly, David, Felipe, I don't think you guys were here last year when we did this, but if you recall in our training just a little while ago, I mentioned the EPA and the smallest piece of your LCFF revenues, right? Again, because this was a voter-approved amendment, a voter-approved ballot measure, we're obligated, because we're taking public dollars now, that any expenditure must be reported in some way, shape, or form. As part of that compliance, we have to do two things. We must approve our estimated expenditures for the EPA dollars for next coming fiscal year, as well as close the loop on this current year in terms of what we actually received and how we expensed it. Even though last year and even next year, if you circle forward, we'll do the same exercise again. This will be an ongoing thing just like this, right? So this one, what we're asking for, as I mentioned in there, and even in the budget, you can see here, this is our, oops, wrong one. I'll give you the long and short of this language. This language here basically says, it gives you some historical data on this this Proposition 13, and then it became Prop 55 back in November of 2016. Right? Basically says this: you agree to receive the money, and you agree to abide by all of the strings that comes with that in terms of how you spend it. That is the long and short of the resolution. And just below the resolution, and I'll say this, you all do not need to sign this. One signature is fine. I put it all on there because some board members will say, hey, I want to sign as well too, but if in case you don't, you do not have to. What you're seeing here is that amount, as I mentioned, it's in the budget. So we're approving an estimated EPA amount for 23-24 school year coming of about $71,000. And we're going to spend it all on teacher salaries, which are right down in this category, right? So that's the long and short of that one.
Any questions for invite a motion to adopt estimate for the next fiscal year? Okay, I'll move in to adopt the estimate as presented by Delano for next fiscal year. So David's got second. We're voting on the line, Molly.
Yes.
And Doug is a yes. And Felipe?
Yeah.
And David?
Yes.
And Miller? Yes. Okay, so next year is forecast. Item F then, we'll see where we are finishing and what we report out.
Yes, this one is for this current fiscal year, 41,056. If you notice here, I said estimated expenditures. I haven't closed the books yet, so I have to use that word estimated, right, until I do. But these are the amounts we will receive. And again, same with the previous year, we'll continue in the same pattern in terms of how we spend it.
Thank you. Motion then to approve the estimated actuals at this point. David's got the motion and Miller second, and we'll start with you, Miller.
Yes.
And David.
Yes.
And Felipe.
Yes.
There's a yes and Molly.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Item G is our final one. We have a proposed set of calendar. Oh, no, we're doing the board calendar. Oh, yeah, just the board calendar meetings, right? Is that right? Okay, you'll see the current forecast of board meetings for the next fiscal year.
No meeting in December is what I'll point out. And of course, if we do approach a particular month and something's changed, this is for planning for all of us. Go ahead, Delano.
December meeting, definitely, yes.
It is
Have to have.
we do have to have a December meeting
Yeah, there are compliance documents,
that we need in.
audit, first interims. that
Is,
are due
is there a
December,
week that you
on or before
recommend
December 15th would be perfect.
on or about December 15th? What do you see there?
December 12th? December 12th?
12th? Is that soon enough for the,
Yeah, that would be plenty
let's
of time.
pencil that in as a change
Yeah.
based on that?
Yeah, pencil it in. I'll say this. I see you have a November 28th meeting. In the event, I can have all of those things. And usually the audit is the last one that will take a little bit of time in terms of them writing that report by that December timeframe. If we get it done early enough in November and I can get the final and everything done, then I can push it along and then you guys can do.
We'll do a
that
break in December. So we've got
Yeah.
that
So I'll
December
try
12th.
to honor it if possible, but for now, put it on there just in case, because again, some of that timing I don't control. So.
You sound good, everybody?
Sounds good.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion then with that change to adding December 12th to adopt or approve our board calendar. Molly moves, I'll second, and going from left to right, Molly,
Yes.
and Doug is a yes, Felipe,
Yes.
David,
Yeah.
and Miller.
Yes.
It was a good day of work for everybody, and we move to item number 8, closing items. Any board member comments for one another or for our executive director? I feel like I'll lead. This is a bit of a round robin. One, I want to congratulate our board member next to me, Molly Chang, on retirement. There really is no such thing as retirement when you're committed to education. How many years did you finish with classroom or other service?
40 years.
Say it one more time.
40 years.
You think of all those children and all those parents, gets you pretty emotional. And hopefully your district celebrated you as well, but we do, and we appreciate that. That's all I have. Next, anyone else, board members, comments or recommendations for our executive director?
Oh, I always have something.
We love it.
I have two things. Actually, I have two things. Number one, I think last meeting, we left off with the concern about the attendance, right? We talked about that briefly. We said that it was a little low, but it was kind of within sort of acceptable levels because of the COVID and the returning and all those different things. But we're definitely, I don't recall, what was the percentage? Do you remember what it was last year?
Now, it hasn't been officially reported, but talking to Power School people, the reports that are coming in from other schools are significantly higher than our chronic absenteeism. Although I am not used to this high because of, pandemic world, but other schools are much higher. But we won't have the official number until we report it to the state. Yeah.
Okay, but we're still concerned about.
But the attendance rate is about 94%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're in the 94s somewhere.
Right.
Obviously, but I think we want that higher, right? We're
Absolutely.
trying to get that higher. And I haven't seen anything or like a plan or what's the, is there any ideas or what are we gonna do? Are we gonna?
Yeah.
Any, I mean, is that coming?
Yeah, that's definitely coming. The director of student services that we just hired, he's actually coming up with an attendance plan, which includes notification, letter notifications to parents once they hit a certain absent mark, like you've been absent 3 times, and then 6 times, and then 9 times. And then you get letters after each of those, and then you get it, and then you have actually a SART, which is a hearing.
I don't know
So,
what that
yes.
is, but I don't want one of those.
Yes,
I-
you don't want one of those. So the director of student services is developing the attendance plan.
And who is that?
That's Joe Fernandez.
Oh, Joe Fernandez.
Yeah.
So I can start pressuring.
You can.
Okay, good. That's what I want to know. And my second thing is Raymond keeps bugging me about his lunch with Dr. B. Okay, so just so you know.
Let's do it.
He hasn't forgotten.
After we get back from the 4th of July.
Yeah,
I'll text you.
Whatever you gotta do, make that happen because he's not gonna forget.
Yes, we're gonna do it.
Whatever.
That's the danger that, we
Yeah.
have someone here.
Okay, I'm good.
I would just congratulate you, Dr. Bean, and then also the administrative staff, of course, the teachers, that for the whole year, that we will see this whole year since the last training of the team in August. Yeah, and then you did what you say.
Mm.
And I think we all experience the calmness, the safe environment, and then also there's not roller coaster, but I think probably the boosters, the future. Yes. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
This is really a wonderful retreat. I learned a lot, so thank you for
Yeah.
program, and I just love that 20 minutes lunchtime,
Yes.
and it's really meaningful. Yeah, yes, thank you.
That part was most.
The good part is
Yeah.
I enjoy it so much. It just, I look forward knowing that in the future I have more time. So whatever I can do for the school, I'm here for.
I would like to add more first before you
Okay.
end, okay? Yeah, I just recently really so proud that, went back to China and then just presenting what I experienced with IIA. And then also all the schools that, I went to, and then basically say that, all I got is, so when can we come to see IIA? And they said, not just that, I think IIA will come to see you too.
There you go.
So, and then I hope that airfare will drop and then family can go.
That'd be great.
Yeah. I just wanna, is it working?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I want to make a comment. I think, today we got a wonderful event, retreat, and as well as a very productive board meeting. Very glad we came that. Also, especially enjoy my 20 minutes conversation with the new HR director. It's wonderful. Yeah, good to know you. And also, I just want to make a comment on the past school year. And it's a wonderful year. It's what I call a transformative,
Yes,
we basically
yes.
transform from a fledgling young charter school to what I call is much more mature, well-developed school.
Yes,
Thanks for
yes.
Dr. Bean and your leadership and your staff, and also the board members.
Yes,
Wonderful,
I
and
think-
the leadership of Doc.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to congratulate everyone. And especially when I, hear as a potential enrollment goes to 350 or 70, I'm very excited. I feel proud of the school. Whenever we introduce to others, and we feel more confident. And we feel we have a great school. It's still growing and it has a lot of potential. And so I just feel good about it, and that's keeps the good work for the next school year.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would say, I would add to that, it puts us in a good position.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
That
is.
number puts us in a good.
Yeah, and then, even today, my wife said, yeah, she introduced the school to a few others. She registered, and she said, you want, you let Dr. Bean and the board member know. I said, I will.
This is outstanding.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, a great day of celebration. My last recommendation would be for the staff to find some time to catch your breath and vacation a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, you certainly earned it, and August will be here before we know it, and then we'll be at full swing again. With that, I'll ask for a recommendation to adjourn. Miller gets it, and I
Yes.
think David got a second in right after that, and so
Yeah.
we'll go roll call vote down the line. Miller
Yes.
and David
Yes.
and Felipe.
Yes.
Doug is a yes, and Molly.
Yes.
And so we're officially adjourned. Mary Beth and everyone else, thank you. Those watching
Thank
online, we
you.
appreciate your participation. We're adjourned.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I've got some papers to sign.
As always.
All right.